Tonight, we leave one quiet lamp burning and step into a corridor of stars. Listen, a single camel bell rings, then another, as if the darkness itself were breathing. The city wall of Chang'an stands behind us like a sleeping mountain, and the western gate yawns open to the plain. Warm dust carries fennel and smoke. Somebody's millet porridge. Somebody's new shoes of stitched felt. A boy hugs a water skin and laughs because it is heavy. An old scribe knots a red ribbon around a rolled map. A caravan master counts softly under his breath. 1 bale, 2, 3. Breathe in and breathe out. We'll travel gently, night by night, along a road that is not a line, but a woven ribbon of paths, a thread that wanted to wander before any footfall. There was a thread, silk light as breath, strong as a promise. Behind low walls, mulberry leaves darkened in spring. Silkworms clicked and chewed like soft rain. Cocoons steamed, filaments unwound. 1,000 yards of shine teased from a handful of quiet nests. What began in rooms of careful hands wished to meet the wind. Courts wanted it, markets wanted it. Strangers began to dream of it without a word for why. Silk pulled the first stitch in a road that was about to be sown. Zhang Qian. And the map, drawn in the mind's 2nd century. Before the Common Era, the Han court sends an envoy, Zhang Qian, westward. He rides valleys and rivers, loses years to capture and escape. Returns with news that tastes like distance, horses that run like thunder from Fergana, markets in Bactria, sachets of strange seed, and names that sound like music, Parthia, Sogdia, Dayuan. No parchment can hold the whole story, but a mental map settles in the court like a bird that means to stay. A path becomes a promise, and promises become footsteps, out through the Jade Gate. We pass the Yumen Guan, the Jade Gate, where the wall exhales into desert. Moonlight lays a thin silver on stone, then on sand. Camels kneel, rise like small ships taking wind. Bells speak in a language of copper and patience. The Gobi opens, a dark ocean with shoals of rock and tide lines of dune. We travel when the night is cool. We rest when the sun is a white drum. At noon, a tent cloth becomes a sky of shade. At evening, a kettle sings 2 notes and is kind to everyone. If your shoulders are tight, let them loosen now, like ropes slipped from a post. Dunhuang, and the caves that keep light at Dunhuang. The cliff faces are honeycombed with quiet. Monks grind lapis into blue, malachite into green, cinnabar into a humble sunrise. Bodhisattvas turn their palms to the world, eyes half closed as if listening to our steps. A pilgrim rinses dust from his feet. A copyist warms his brush hairs with breath. A lantern makes a circle on a sutra, and the characters hum like low bees. Outside, camels chew, guards trade riddles. Stars push against the rim of the world. Breathe once, as if you could smell ink. Tea, and the cool of cave stone. Oasis to oasis. The road in many strands. The Silk Road is not one road, it is many. A braid that loosens, divides, and meets again. At Hami, melons rest in shaded wells. At Turfan, underground, Karez channels carry water with the patience of centuries. In Kucha, a musician plucks a pipa, and a single note lingers like a bird that forgot to fly. Khotan hums with weavers and jade cutters, sleeves dusted pale from river stones. Languages lean together, Chinese, Sogdian, Tocharian, Persian, Sanskrit. Then the language of hands and eyebrows, when coins and cloth take turns between palms. Cardamom tickles dust. Musk hides in waxed packets. Cinnamon whispers from cracked bark. The road moves goods, but even more. It moves ideas and moods. The Sogdians, heartbeat of the middle. If trade had a drumbeat, it would be the Sogdians. From Samarkand and Bukhara, they carry ledgers and laughter. Bright jackets, small tough horses. Amulets that wink when they move. A Sogdian host claps twice, sweet tea arrives. Bargaining is a dance, not a duel. 2 stories are told for every coin counted. And the end of a good bargain is not silence, but shared bread. They keep many gods in a single heart, and make room for a guest's god without spilling a drop. Children learn to play among bales, measuring hide and seek by the smell of pepper or the shine of silk. If wakefulness clings to you, let your jaw soften. Let the back of your tongue rest. You are safe in their courtyard. Caravansary, a day in the middle of the world walls. 1 gate, a square of peace. The caravansary is a pause stitched into distance. Camels kneel and sigh out dust. A farrier lifts a hoof and sets it down gentle as a cup. A cook tosses onions into a pan, and they speak suddenly of home to everyone at once. Account books open. Customs seals press warm wax. A guard circles the roofline and counts to the last merlon. At night, a storyteller clears the throat of the courtyard with a single cough, and the children scoot closer on woven rugs. He tells of the glass that sings, the prince who weighed justice on his own hand, the ribbon of silk that could pass through a ring. No one asks if the stories are true. Truth has different weights here: kindness, usefulness, beauty. Bridges of faith. Beliefs walk as easily as travelers. Buddhism crosses deserts in sandals, setting down at Mogao and Kizil, each sutra translated syllable by careful syllable. A monk named Xuanzang will one day carry scriptures home like water in an unspilled bowl. Zoroastrian fires burn in Sogdian halls, tended by hands that smell of cardamom. A Nestorian stele will speak of Christian prayers in Xi'an. Later, Islam will fold cities into a rhythm of dawn and dusk. Kashgar, Yarkand, Bukhara, minarets rising like calm exclamation points. The road is a table set for many, steam rising from bowls that do not argue, things that change the world. Quietly. Some trades make more noise than others, but the quiet ones move mountains. Paper walks west in sheets thin as dragonfly wings. In Samarkand, a scholar holds a page to light and sees the weave of fibers. Frost patterns captured in daylight. 2 books become 4. 4 become a library that would have taken a lifetime to chain and guard in parchment. Gunpowder begins as laughter, fireworks blooming in courtyards. Later it will be taught to speak more sternly, but tonight we keep it to sparks and joy. The stirrup makes a rider's balance trustworthy. The saddlebag makes distance obedient. The compass whispers to sailors that clouds do not decide direction. Porcelain rides wrapped in straw, cool as moonlight at noon. Tea becomes a habit people keep without noticing they've chosen it. Breathe in to the count of 3. Breathe out to the count of 3. Small things, carried far, become large. Mountains like sleeping giants. Roads split at Kashgar, north over the Pamir, or south along the Karakoram. Either way, the world tilts into height. Air grows thin. Thoughts grow simple. Step, breath, step, breath. Snow holds a blue no painter can steal. On the far slope, Bactria opens green as forgiveness. The Oxus folds light like silk. A boy counts the beads on his mother's bracelet for courage. A mule's bell keeps a human heartbeat honest. The Persian corridor and lamps of learning, archers leap the Tigris at Ctesiphon. In Baghdad, lamps glitter over the house of wisdom. Translations slide from Greek to Arabic, from Sanskrit to the language of algebra, from Chinese craft to the tongue of craft's future. A scribe from Basra and a merchant from Chang'an argue kindly about whether a line goes forever, or only until a human eye grows tired. Down the Levantine coast, another road shivers. The sea, ropes creak, sails remember the wind, and the land road nods to its salted twin. Logistics, dangers, and the kind solutions of practice. Bandits study shadows, dunes erase tracks, taxes change with the mood of a gate. So travellers answer with companions, convoys, seals, and songs whose meters match the plod of hooves. Water skins are counted twice. Maps are remembered 3 times. And the rule of the road is simple. Share shade, share warning, share bread. When illness walks beside the caravan, tents are spaced wide. Bedding is aired in sun. Bowls are rinsed in flowing water. Knowledge moves at the speed of kindness. You can breathe with the trees now. Even here, where trees are stories, like leaves lifting, out, like leaves settling. Samarkand at noon, turquoise for a sky. At last, Samarkand. Turquoise tiles catch the sun and pour it back as river light. The register opens like a book of geometry, lines, arches, stars bound by mathematics and patience. Markets lift their lids, pomegranate halves like little suns. Bread slapped against tandoor walls, knives ringing small songs. A Sogdian accountant smiles at a balanced column. A child counts dates by 5s. A traveller writes a letter on Samarkand paper and seals it with a sigh. We could linger a lifetime here, and many have. But night arrives with its cool hand. Night in the square of peace. Back in the caravansary, animals fed, harness coiled. Ledgers closed with a soft clap. Someone drops a pinch of saffron on a brazier, and the smoke remembers gardens none of us have seen. The storyteller returns, just one tale, about a jade cup that sings when set on a certain table, and about a young prince who weighed justice in his own palm and found it heavier than gold. No one corrects the tale. We have come too far to prefer certainty over wonder. If you are drifting, drift. If you are awake, let your brow smooth, your tongue rest heavy, your eyes lean toward dreams. Dawn stains the tiles of Samarkand. A pale turquoise before the sun decides. Someone sweeps a courtyard in slow ovals. Someone ties a final knot in a bale. The bell rings once, then once again, and the gate opens like a yawn. Breathe in to the count of 3. Breathe out to the count of 3. We go on, west by the river of gold. We follow the Zarafshan, the gold-bearing river, and the road lays a hand on Bukhara. Minarets speak in brick. a market folds and unfolds like a fan. A dealer in dyes opens a pouch of carmine. A scholar opens a page of hadith. A baker slaps bread to the oven wall. The bread answers with a hiss that means soon, farther. The green spoon of Merv cradles water in the desert. Ruins breathe out the old names, Gyarkala, Sultan Kala, and the wind catalogues bricks softly, as if counting memories. At Nishapur, the earth is the colour of light tea. Turquoise sleeps in stone there, and wakes as beads at wrists and throats. A poet copies 2 lines and smiles, because the second line landed better than he hoped. Breathe once, as if you could smell dust after rain, across Khorasan, and the roofs of Persia. The Khorasan road threads Ray, Kazvin, Zanjan, past khanats that run like secret veins beneath the dry skin of the land. Caravanserais appear at day's edge, square, quiet, sure. Inside, ledgers open, hands wash. A sleepy guard finds the best corner of shade and blesses it. Isfahan arrives like geometry sung aloud. Bridges throw long stone laces over the river. A square as wide as patience holds voices like a bowl. Calligraphers practice letters that feel like water on the wrist. Tile makers fire blues that learn their depth from the sky. Night brings another roof, a kanka where dervishes turn slowly, their skirts like bells of cloth, their palms open to give and to receive. A single flute asks the darkness a kind question, and then asks it again. If your shoulders have risen, let them fall, like a cloak slid from a peg, fires that don't go out. In small courtyards, the Zoroastrian flame keeps a steady daylight of its own. Tenders lift wood with reverence, not fear. A child learns that keeping is a kind of prayer, that tending is also travel. In bazaars, Hafez is murmured. Ferdowsi is remembered. A line of Rumi drifts past the spice stalls and finds you even if you were not looking. The road is not hurrying, and neither are we, through the Zagros, to the rivers that right up, into the Zagros. Stone ribs, goat paths, switchbacks that teach patience the old way, down and the world opens to water. Boats loosen from banks of the Tigris and Euphrates like leaves agreeing to float. We moor where the lamps of Baghdad write their reflections on the river. In the House of Wisdom, a translator dips a reed and pulls a bridge between languages. A Greek physician learns an Arabic verb for healing. An Indian number puts on Persian clothes. An astrolabe guesses the positions of angels and stars with equal calm. A papermaker from Samarkand teaches a Cairo merchant to love fibre and water. And soon libraries grow like orchards in a country that did not know it could be so green. Breathe in, as if reading were a scent. Breathe out, as if comprehension had weight and you could set it down gently. North to the cold blue, or south to the salt blue. From Tabriz, the road splits like a fork in a river. North, Erzurum, Sivas, Kayseri, Konya, Anatolia in long breaths. Seljuk caravanserais squat like friendly fortresses. Sultanhan are wide enough to house a small weather. At Konya, whirling cloth circles the still point of the heart. South, Aleppo, Damascus, the Levant's old vocabulary of stone and fruit. The SUQ is an organ with many pipes, copper, leather, soap that smells like patience. On Straight Street, sandals remember the Romans without trying. and farther south again. Acre, Tyre, Alexandria. Gates that open to the Mediterranean, where another road waits, written in rope and wind. The road that floats. A dhow receives bales like confidences. The teen sails tilt their heads and listen for the oldest direction. We step from camel's rhythm into wave time. Up, pause, down, glide. You may feel yourself swaying where you lie. It's all right. Your bed remembers how to be a boat, past Cyprus and Rhodes, or through the Aegean islands, like beads on a simple string. Up the Bosphorus, the Golden Horn cupped like a hand, Constantinople, a book of gold hinges. Or north across the Black Sea to Kaffa, where the Genoese count quietly and throw their nets into commerce and rumour. West, at last, to Venice, workshops on Murano fire sand into glass that holds light like a tame flame. A banker prints numbers as neat as rosary beads. A sailor bites a fig and forgives the sea for everything. Someone says, Rome, and you understand that the word means west, end, arrival, and beginning. A shadow that travelled. And the lamps that stayed. Not every traveller is invited. Sometimes a small life rides rope and fur and leaps at a wrist in the dark. A shadow crosses from Kaffa to the harbours beyond, and the bells in distant cities change their tone for a season. We will not linger in sorrow tonight. Even then, there were hands that kept water warm, windows open, air moving. And when the long night lifted, songs returned. Markets breathed again, and roads remembered their purpose, to connect. Breathe in, slowly. Breathe out, slowly. You are far from every storm, the Mongol moon, and the quiet of safe roads. Time turns its page. Hooves ride fast across the steppe, and a Mongol moon rises. Under Chinggis Khan and his heirs, the road wears a new kind of armour. A web of relay posts, the Yam, where fresh horses wait like coiled springs. A traveller bears a small metal paiser and moves with the speed of trust. Engineers from the west raise siege towers in the east. Weavers from the east show knots to hands in the west. Kubilai sits in Dadu with a globe in his gaze. Hulagu builds in Tabriz. Sarai mirrors the sky beside the Volga. Marco Polo listens more than he speaks. Rabban Bar Sauma prays east and walks west, and letters cross deserts faster than they used to dream. For a while, the road is as safe as it ever was, and the markets learn boldness again. The long leaning toward the sea empires crack along their old seams. As empires always do, gates change hands, taxes change moods, and the ocean begins to whisper a louder promise. Far to the south, a Chinese admiral named Zheng, who will later steer treasure ships across warm water, not to conquer, but to show the size of a horizon. To the far west, Portuguese caravels nibble at the edge of Africa, then bite, then round the horn of the world to Calicut and Hormuz. Silk and pepper begin to ride more often on swell and foam than on sand and bell. The land road doesn't die, it simply learns to be quieter. If you feel a little sadness, let it pass like a small cloud across a full moon. What remains, and how near it, is the legacy of the road sits already in your room, a sheet of paper near your hand. Its great-great-great-grandparent learned to float from a vat in Samarkand, then taught the world to copy itself more easily. A cup of tea that you forget to drink until it is the right temperature. Leaves from southern hills. Habits from 1,000 evenings. Numbers that count your breaths. 0 behaving like a miracle and like common sense. A lute that sailed west and became the luto, then lute. A pipa that turned and returned as instruments learned to change clothes. The blue in a bowl, cobalt that walked east to dye porcelain, then returned west as blue and white heirlooms of kitchens and holidays. Words that shrug their foreign passports and live in your own mouth. Sugar, lemon, orange, apricot. Satin, muslin, damask, caravan, bazaar, kiosk. Proof that languages trade the way people do. With jokes, with recipes, with lullabies. Breathe in, and notice that history smells like bread and ink. Breathe out, and notice that you are part of it. Quietly, already. Lanterns, dunes, starfields, and bells. Let's step back to the road for one more candle's worth of time. Night on the Taklamakan, dunes like sleeping whales. Our caravan moves as if the earth itself were turning us. Lanterns make little rooms of gold that stroll through a blue world. Bells talk to one another with patience. The sky is a library of cold fire. Someone at the rear hums a tune he cannot quite remember. Someone at the front counts to 60 and starts again. The road is not a line after all. It is a heartbeat, shared among strangers who become less strange. A soft arrival. We will stop where we like, at a city gate, at a harbour, at a small inn where the host hangs a fresh towel and pretends not to be proud of it. Your journey has been long enough for tonight. You have crossed grassland and salt, cliff and market, alphabet and appetite. You have watched ideas pack themselves light and travel farther than armies. Close the ledger, loosen the girth, wet the dust from your throat with a sip of warm water and honey. If your eyes are heavy, let them be heavy. If your breath is slow, let it be slower. Settle your shoulders. Let them sink a finger's breadth deeper. Breathe in to 3. Breathe out to 3. We begin with Hans, the copyist, in a lamplit room behind a market stall in Xi'an. A copyist sharpens his brush. He wets the hair in clean water, rolls a point between thumb and forefinger, then tests one small stroke on scrap. On the low table, paper sits like snow that agreed to be warm. Ink cake meets water in slow circles. A midnight blooming in a shallow dish. He writes a sutra line, then a merchant's receipt, then a proverb that feels like good advice, even to the wall. Between each page, he lifts his eyes and blinks softly to rest the world. Breathe in, as if you can smell the faint pine of ink. Breathe out, as if a character you love has just landed straight. The waterfinder out near Khotan, where the wind writes low letters in sand. A waterfinder walks the line between hills. He carries nothing you could name as magic, only patience, and a listening foot. He watches for reeds where no stream shows, a darker green in the shoulder of a slope, a hollow where insects gather at dusk. He taps the earth with a staff, hears a tone only years can teach. Then workers dig sideways into the hill, not downward but along, a kanat drawing cool water from a far, quiet source. Air vents rise like a string of moons across the terrain. In the village below, a courtyard pool forms by afternoon. A little boy launches a walnut shell with a twig mast. A little girl names the ship Fortunate. Sip one breath, set one breath down. The Caravan Master. The Caravan Master knows the taste of storms before they show their teeth. He walks the line at twilight, hand on a donkey's withers, counting packs like rosary beads. He chooses which bales ride low, which high, who walks at the bell, who watches the sick camel's right foreknee. He says little, and everything happens. At night, he spreads a map that has almost no marks, only stars. He knows the small dip in the dune that means lee, the paler stripe that means old wind river, the smell of rock before you see rock. He sleeps last, and wakes first, and still smiles when the tea is poured. The Interpreter. At Kashgar's Sunday market, a woman sits at a low stool with a braided cord at her wrist. To the east, Chinese. To the west, Persian. To the north, Turkic. In between, Sogdian like a bridge. She catches a phrase in flight, hands it a new coat, and sets it gently on the other side of the table. Sometimes she translates words, sometimes intentions, sometimes a simple laugh that needs no help at all. A traveller leaves with a bolt of cloth he could not have bought an hour ago. She ties the cord tighter around her wrist and buys pomegranates on her way home. The stable master and the beasts. In a square of shadow at a caravanserai, the stable master knows every hoof by sound. Bactrian camels kneel with the sigh of old chairs. Double-humped ships that do not fear winter. Dromedaries came with traders from warmer routes. Single sails for the hot wind. Mules carry what pride will not. Patient accountants of distance. A yak glances sideways with the wisdom of mountain snow. He rubs a sore with warm salt and oil. Knots a rope with a kindness that holds. He thanks the beasts under his breath. Because thanks is a good salt for any day. At the back of the court, the cook keeps a small republic of heat, flat stones, a brazier, a battered pan with a handle polished by years. He slaps dough to hot iron, naan that bubbles and browns like a cloud learning sunset. He stirs a pot where lentils have decided to be generous, shakes in cumin and coriander from a folded paper. He crushes mint for yogurt, tears cress with clean hands. Drops 3 threads of saffron because tonight deserves a little gold. Bowls pass from hand to hand, and the road becomes a table. The night watch. A guard walks the wall with a bell on his finger, not to ring, only to remember time is round. He counts stars, then counts breaths, then listens for the soft gossip of rope and leather settling for sleep. He touches the iron gate, cool and convinced of itself, when the fox cries from the far field. He smiles, because fear is smaller when it declares its name. If your thoughts wander, let them turn the corner and come back. They always come back. The port pilot. At a harbour on the Red Sea, lamps bead the quays like a simple necklace. The pilot steps aboard a hull with bare feet that read currents. He inhales and smells monsoon. Hippolyt's old certainty that the wind keeps appointments across seasons. He knows the sandbars that move like shy animals. The hour the tide will pretend to be late and then arrive with a grin. He sets a course with 2 fingers, and a ship obeys as if taught. Between Berenike and Muziris, between Aden and Hormuz. His knowledge is the rope that does not fray. A letter on the road. A merchant whispers to a scribe in Sogdiana. Write to my cousin in Merv. Tell him the indigo is true, the pepper deer, the wool honest. The scribe dips and draws in a hand that looks like ladders leaning on the wind. He warms a seal of red wax with his breath, presses a small stone engraved with a leaping animal. The letter travels pouch to pouch, gate to gate, and reaches a courtyard where someone laughs softly at good news. We think roads carry feet. They carry promises, Dunhuang, and a library that slept where the desert lifts its face toward the Gansu sky. The Mogao caves keep cool shadow and painted light. In the hush, bodhisattvas tilt their heads in compassion that feels like time slowed to a heartbeat. Kucha sent musicians who painted sound into color. Gandhara sent stone faces that learned a little Greek calm. One small chamber became a library that rested for centuries behind a careful wall. Later, a monk's hand would open what a monk's hand had sealed. And the room would exhale sutras, contracts, letters, songs. A whole village of voices that thought they were alone. Breathe in, as if dust motes were golden. Breathe out, as if memory could be folded and kept. A translator in Chang'an. In Chang'an, a scholar named Kumarajva shapes Sanskrit into Chinese with a tenderness that feels like carpentry done with silk. He does not translate word for word, but meaning for meaning, so that ideas travel with their balance intact. Monks carry the pages west again, merchants east. And soon, even silence seems to know more languages. 3 markets, 3 colors, Kashgar, copper and leather, the smell of horse and apricot. A blacksmith lifts his hammer and lowers it like rain. A felt tent is raised in 10 breaths. Patterned bands bright as conversation. Bukhara, blue tiles, quiet courtyards. Someone counts beads, someone counts rents. Someone counts breaths to calm the day. A hadith teacher offers a word like a glass of water. Khotan, silk that began as mulberry leaves under a patient moon. Women reel thread with hands that remember without looking. At the river, Urankash, jade naps in gravel like pieces of rain that decided to stay. Recipes, the road. Remembered paper. Soak rags, beat fibre, lift with a screen and feel the water choose to leave. Lay in the sun until light has taught the sheet to be strong. Ink, pine soot and glue. Ground in a dish with the smallest circles you can make without hurrying. Add a single tear of oil so the brush will glide like a swan. Sherbet, snow from high shade. Syrup of rose or pomegranate, a sprig of basil that thinks it is summer even when it is not. Serve to the oldest traveller first. Tea, warm the pot, warm the cups, wake the leaves with one short pour and give that water back to the ground. Pour again. Now we begin. If you are thirsty, swallow once with care, as if water were a guest, navigating without a clock. In the Taklamakan you count distance by songs. In the Karakum you watch cairns set by other careful hands. At sea you trust the wind rose and the bruised plum smell of rain. Under a new moon. You measure one fist at arm's length from the horizon to find Polaris. And you think of all the fists before yours that lifted that same small measure of night, things that learn to travel, A compass points not to a place, but to a decision. A pinch of saltpeter learns to dance with charcoal and sulfur. First as festival, later as different kinds of fire. A block of types learns to move, letters becoming citizens who can visit any page. Porcelain listens to kaolin and heat until it sings when tapped. And cobalt from Persian hills teaches the glaze a new kind of blue. Bowls cross oceans, and the ocean remembers how to be careful with them. The caravanserai, every 20, 30 miles, a square with one purpose: to turn strangers into neighbours until dawn. A gate deep as a promise. A courtyard large enough to exhale in. Cells like commas around the edge. A mihrab for prayer. A well that keeps the cold at the bottom even at noon. A platform where news is told twice so no one misses the good part. Stories change pack trains faster than grain. Settle a little deeper, as if the mattress were sand warmed by late sun. Breathe in to 3. Breathe out to 3. We'll begin with a table. Recipe for blue, indigo, cobalt, and a slice of sky. In a courtyard of Khotan, vats squat like sleeping oxen. Indigo leaves were once green. Just green. Baskets full of ordinary afternoon. Then the leaves were steeped and stirred, coaxed to ferment, the water darkening to a secret. A paddle lifts the liquor and pours it back. Again, and again, and the air does its quiet work. What looks dull on the stick blooms blue on the cloth, as if the sky had been hiding under the surface, waiting for breath. On a shelf, cakes of dye dry to the hardness of memory. A woman dips, lifts, rings without violence, hangs a length that will be a shirt, a banner, a binding on a book of wisdom. The drip sings a thin song into the jar below. Far away, a potter in a riverside town grinds cobalt. A Persian stone taught to speak Chinese in the kiln. He paints vines and clouds on a bowl that will cross 2 seas and still look fresh enough to drink the moon from. A painter in the Mogao caves rubs lapis to milk and honey. Ultramarine arriving like dawn in a cave that never forgets. If your chest is tight, think of cloth changing from green to blue in open air. Breathe in, the moment before the colour shows. Breathe out, the moment it does. The relay rider, one day on the yam. The road flattens to a ribbon, the horizon to a sentence that continues calmly. A relay rider swings into the saddle at first light. At his belt, a tablet of authority, paisa, stamped with a sovereign's leave. In his pouch, 3 short letters, each with a town's patience folded inside. Hooves count the morning, 4-4, 4-4, steady as a loom. At the first post station, a fresh horse waits, mane combed, eyes clear as noon water. A groom takes the bridle, another hands a cup of tea that remembers smoke. No speeches, only nods. And the change is done before the steam fades. Miles pass like beads between fingers. Birds rise and resettle in the same sky. A bridge knocks lightly beneath. He wears a scarf against dust, lifts it to drink, lowers it when the wind remembers to be kind. At the second post, he shares a bowl of noodles with a clerk who counts distances by the hearth marks on his spoon. They say a single joke about weather, the only joke a road ever needs. By dusk, the rider slides from the saddle, with a sound like a hinge oiled for generations. Letters placed, replies taken, the day tied neatly. He sleeps on a platform by the door, one hand open, as if still holding the rein of time. If your thoughts are restless, let them be hooves for a minute, even Even, the last ship out of Hormuz, before the wind turns heat, rings like a bell at noon. On Hormuz, the strait pinches seas together until currents learn manners. A captain licks a finger and holds it to a wind older than any chart. He says, softly, "Tonight." The cargo comes as if it knows the order. Bales of silk stacked like quiet cities. Pepper that storms the nose and then bows. Jars of dates dark as kindness. Porcelain wrapped in woven grass that thinks it's a cradle. 2 horses led aboard with towels over their eyes so they dream pasture while the deck learns to move. A pilot steps from the skiff and reads the water, the way a monk reads a margin note. The anchor lifts with a wet shudder, chains singing home through the hawse. Astern, the island's forts turn to thumbprints. A boy coils a rope until it looks like a sleeping snake with good intentions. Night comes without argument. The monsoon runs its broad hand along the canvas and finds what it was looking for. The helmsman keeps the Southern Cross on the quarter, a small geometry that has forgiven men larger mistakes. Below, jars tap gently in their racks, like neighbors saying goodnight through the wall. If you feel the swell beneath your thoughts, let it lift, let it set, let it lift, let it set. You are not at sea, you are safely ashore, listening to water think, the weaver of stories, how tales. Walk at a tea house where 3 streets meet. A storyteller ties a scarf around his brow and taps a lute once, just once. He tells of Kalila and Dimina, jackals with politics and hearts. He tells of a glass city in the desert where people learned to reflect before they spoke. He tells of a child who carried a bowl of oil through the market without spilling, because a tiger walked silently beside her. And fear can be balance when it is named. Listeners come and go, but the story remains seated, gracious, like a host who will not leave before the last guest. Coins clink into the plate. A small boy at the door repeats the last line under his breath until it belongs to him. Gifts between courts, the grammar of wonder. An envoy enters a hall with floors like quiet mirrors. Before him, giraffes described as walking constellations. Lions drawn in silk on silk. A mechanical clock that imagines water as time. Falcons hooded like monks who know the next page already. From the other side, porcelain that weighs less than its own shadow. A length of brocade where dragons curl like questions that do not need an answer. A small pharmacy in a carved box. Rhubarb, myrrh, musk, and pearls taught to be medicine. Not all gifts are things. Sometimes a map is given that admits the giver does not know everything. The road's sounds, a short catalogue for sleep leather creaking like polite conversation. Sand hushing under a lifted hoof. A pestle persuading sesame into paste. Flags talking in a fort's late breeze. Distant bells practicing patience. A river making the same point for 1,000 miles. Paper turning. A brush breathing. 2 people laughing once and then letting the night have the rest. Breathe in, hearing one. Breathe out, keeping none. What we carry, forward. From this long road we keep habits more than souvenirs. The habit of attention, to water, to wind, to the small change in a friend's voice. The habit of fairness, scales level, lists kept, gates opened and closed at the right times. The habit of kindness, space given, bowls passed, letters answered. And the habit of wonder, that a leaf can become blue, that a rock can become sky, that a stranger can become safe, The lamp is low again. The table is bare, because everything has been put in its place. Lay your day down beside the merchant's things. It will be there in the morning, folded, rested, ready. Before sunrise, a courtyard breathes cool air, a low bench, a tray, a brush whose hairs remember a forest. The lacquerer bows to the day without speaking. Sap from the lacquer tree waits in a small bowl, cloudy as held breath. He paints a thin layer on a box meant for journeys. Not thick, never thick, because lacquer is a temple built slowly. One coat, then waiting in a room of damp warmth, where dust is not allowed to be brave. Another coat, then waiting again. The shine growing not from haste, but from patience. Gold powder is tapped through silk, a drifting constellation settling in curves and corners. Cranes appear, clouds. A wave like a shepherd's hand laid on the back of the sea. A buyer will cross 2 deserts for this glimmer that does not shout. The road loves things that can endure a bruise, then look new after a cloth and a breath. If your thoughts are rushing, be lacquer for a moment. One thin coat, then rest. At a tea stall where the road splits like a question, 2 traders lean over a table. No parchment, no compass today. Only a small lamp and a saucer of black. With a wet finger, one draws on the other's palm. Here is Dunhuang, the caves like a second sky underground. Here, Hami, melons sweet as a kind word. This curve is the Tianshan shadow. Walk early, walk quiet. These 5 dots are wells. If the 3rd is dry, the 5th will be generous. He blows gently, so the black dries to a thought that will not smudge. The map is held open by the simplest hinge in the world, the heart line and the lifeline. When they part, the traveller carries the world in a fist that knows when to loosen. If you need directions tonight, they are simple, in and out, forward and home. Winter crossing, the Pamirs under stars. Snow begins without argument. The Pamir heights rise like folded paper, sharpened to a blade of white. Caravan bells are wrapped in cloth, so sound will not spend warmth. Men walk beside yak, whose breath is a soft halo in the night. Steps cut a stair in drifted wind. At a pass, the air is thin as a vow. Someone says a prayer, not for victory, only for kind weather and sure feet. The sky is full of stars that never learn to be small. In a hollow between rocks, they make a box of fire from dung and brush. A pot kisses the coals. Snow becomes tea. Life becomes life again. A boy pulls his scarf across his face and sleeps with one hand under the rope that links pack to pack, not because he fears loss, but because the rope is warm from the animal and kindness travels through rope. At dawn, the ridge gentles. What was far is near. The road thanks them, not loudly, but it does. If your chest is tight, imagine the first sun on snow, blue shadows slipping back, breath finding more room, a perfume of cities, attar, musk, and wind. In a courtyard market works a perfumer who speaks 6 winds. He pounds rose to water, lifts attar drop by drop like stars gathered in glass. He measures musk with a spoon too small for the eye and exactly right for the nose. He burns a thread of aloes wood and counts to 10, as if to remind time that smoke is a kind lesson in departure. A veiled woman tastes the air like a reader at the last line of a page. A sailor buys civet for the long hold that smells of rope and cumin. The perfumer wraps each note in paper with a brush mark that says what language cannot. The word for home, written for many homes. Let your breath be a vial, uncorked slowly. In, rose. Out, wind that remembers where it has been. The caravan judge, scales, oaths, and a quiet bench disputes arrive like small storms. A caravan judge carries no sword, only scales, a reed pen, a book that smells of leather and winter. Two men speak, each certain enough to be loud. The judge is gentle to their certainty. He asks for weights, for measures, for the witness whose eyes blink without rehearsal. He asks each to repeat his oath slower, because truth dislikes haste. On the page he writes not just the decision, but the reason for the decision, so that tomorrow's quarrel arrives smaller. Afterward, he steps aside and watches sparrows argue on a wall with more grace than men. He smiles, eats a date, writes the word peace, then closes the book as if tucking a child to sleep. If your mind is litigating with itself, be the judge for one breath. Ask for evidence, reduce the volume, write a small reason, rest. Seals and signatures. In Palmyra, a merchant presses a cylinder seal into soft clay and rolls a lion across a field of barley. In Samarkand, a woman signs with a simple mark learned from her mother. A buller ties a cord around a jar's neck like a necklace with a purpose. If the cord is cut, the story has already been told. Small biographies, brief as lamps. The porter laughs at dawn, sleeps by the gate, can carry a three-legged pot and never lose the rhythm of his feet. The dyer, blue to the knuckle, knows that colour is a mood water wears. The felt maker rolls wool until it becomes weatherproof tenderness. The lute seller plucks two notes and waits, because waiting is half of music. The healer washes her hands longer than anyone else, calls it a prayer. The map mender adds a spring where none was marked, erases a road that bragged and did not exist. They are the road's biography, written in present tense. 3 quiet cities, Merv, nicknamed Queen of the World, in a season when reeds remembered rain. Even in ruin, her bricks lie like sleeping cattle, full of tomorrow. Aleppo, the citadel high on a stone cushion. The Xi'an, a cool artery under ribs of vaulting. Soap is cut into blocks that look like promises. Venice, water thinking it is a street. Wood thinking it is a palace. A glass blower turns breath into a window you can drink from. A gentle thread on faith. A monk from Nalanda carries a book and a bowl. A Sogdian merchant lights a lamp before he tallies. A jurist in Bukhara writes a ruling that tastes like mercy. A Nestorian carves a cross with leaves that remember Shaanxi hills. The road does not make them the same. It teaches them to listen. Decline without drama. Memory. Without dust roots shifted to sea and gun, to custom house and cannon. As centuries turned their heavy pages, some caravan gates were bricked for safety. Some were left open for goats and boys and stories. But the road did not close. It thinned. It braided differently. It learned to travel in your cupboard, in your bookshelf, in your mouth. If there is a sadness, let it be gentle, and let it find a chair. what the road teaches at last. That attention is a form of love. Attention to water and to air, to space and to care. Attention to the stranger who becomes a neighbour by evening. Attention to a bowl passed from left hand to right, and to the silence between two good sentences. Breathe in, as if the road has just poured tea. Breathe out, as if you have just answered, thank you. Soft close. The lamp is low now, the ledger closed, the beasts dreaming their grass. Outside the last gate a wind draws a clean line in sand, then erases it kindly, above. Orion leans forward as if to hear one more story and then remember it exactly. Sleep takes your hand again. Patient. Practiced. Sure. It leads you along a garden path where silk hangs from branches like moonlight made visible, where bells ring only inside the chest, where roads are gentle threads that mend everything they touch. Good night, traveller of letters and lanterns. Good night.